Georgia Tech tomorrow in Georgia. Syracuse taking on the Yellow Jackets for going for win number 13 this year after a heartbreaker against Miami that we've talked about ad nauseum. Let's get right into it. We'll preview the game, predictions. We'll let you know everything you need to know about Josh Pastner's team. It's on Locked On Syracuse. It's right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on your Friday episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thanks so much for being with us today and every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, let's get right into it. Syracuse taking on the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets are 8-10 on the season, 1-7 in ACC play, and they have lost the last, 6 out of the last 7 games, 7 out of the last 8, or something like that. They're bad, man. They're not very good, but their one win is against Miami, so that's the only piece of information that could be a little bit troublesome because, of course, Syracuse did lose to Miami, albeit it was close. Georgia Tech got them. So this is a team that over the last couple of years has given Syracuse some trouble. The players that contributed to that are no longer on the team. That was, of course, Jose Alvarado, who's now in the NBA, Moses Wright, who had a little flash in the NBA, and then Michael DeVoe and those guys. Those are probably the names you're used to when you're thinking of Georgia Tech. Those guys are all gone. It is now the Miles Kelly show. Kelly is a second-year player. Last year, 4.5 points per game. This year, 13.5 points per game, 6'4" guard. He's going to be probably the biggest contributor for the Yellow Jackets. And then as well as him is Dallin Coleman, another second-year player. This Yellow Jackets team is not huge on scoring, nor are they huge on defense. They're not that good. They are 216th in the nation in scoring, 202nd in scoring defense. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a grasp on where they are. No eye-popping numbers when it comes to this team. But at the same time, this is the kind of game with Syracuse being on the road in Atlanta, I get a little bit worried about.
Bones, I'm going to come out with a hot take today.
Oh, no.
This team sucks. They are not a good basketball team.
It's true.
I'm looking at trying to find like what is worrisome. And outside of the fact that they beat Miami, I don't know what is. Right? I look at the resume, there's not much that they really have to offer. I look through all the KenPom stats. There's nothing that's really incredible. I look at the team, like it's a very underwhelming team. And a very, I guess, underwhelming game at that, given the way Syracuse has performed this season as well. I don't think I'm worried. I'm looking at their recent success that hasn't been there. As you mentioned, they've lost 6 of their last 7 of their last 9. This is not a great team. They're not playing good basketball. They're not winning basketball games. They have an overtime loss to Notre Dame, which I guess is like the closest they really got. This Florida State team, they lost to Florida State, who's not very good. They, lose by 11 to Pitt. They lose by 12 to NC State. I don't know what they have to offer. I want to say, this is a tough game. This is a team that's got something, or here's the sneak attack, or this is what you got to look out for. And outside of insert random player who gets hot from 3, I don't know what the true worry is for any team squaring up against Georgia Tech at this point.
So you say all that, and I agree with you, but Syracuse is still only favored by 1 point, which is the thing that is a little bit worrisome. And I'll put it right out on the table. This is a non-negotiable game. Syracuse must win this game. I mean, seriously, they have to win this game. And people are going to tell me I'm being dramatic and that there's time, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to play in the tournament, you got to beat these teams. The good teams still have to beat the bad teams at the end of the day. You can't just play decent against the good teams and think that's going to get you anywhere. You got to beat the bad teams. And Georgia Tech falls into that category. They're not very good. Syracuse hasn't been playing as well as it can be, but that's no excuse. They need to win this game. And it being on the road, like I said, is the thing that worries me because, as we know, road games for the better team this year have been total toss-ups. And you just have to think that home field or home court advantage is going to have something to do with it. But, at the same time, I don't know how much these Georgia Tech fans are getting behind their 8-10 team, 1-7 in the ACC. But still, this is also the kind of game that'll give some guys an opportunity to really shine. This could be a game where Chris Bunch goes off or Judah has a huge bounce back after getting a lot of backlash after that Miami game. He's hungry and he wants to make a statement after getting a ton of flack for only having 3 points in that Miami loss. And maybe Jesse comes up big, Malik Brown. Maybe we get some answers to the questions that we've been asking for what seems like way too long now. But still, I think that it's probably going to be closer than we all think it is, regardless of what should happen.
I think you nailed it. This is a game you have to win. This is not a must-win in terms of resume building. It is a must-win in terms of pride, in terms of fan engagement, in terms of what you can expect anything to happen for the rest of the season, what you can expect for the rest of the season, right? This is a game you have to win. Inexcusable loss at this point in the season. And I think you bring up a good point in that this is a game where you probably are going to see some things happen from guys that maybe aren't your trio of, well, I guess everyone's name starts with a J. Your Jesse, your Judah, and your Joe trio. This is a game where I do think it presents a good opportunity for someone else to be, a big-time contributor. I don't know who it might be. You mentioned it. It could be, right, obviously I just threw him in the trio there, but this could be the huge return from Judah. Obviously wants to prove himself, obviously wants to do something. But this is also a game where, some of these guys that have not been incredible can come in and show out and have a strong performance. And I think that's sort of the matchup that they present. This is not, a Georgia Tech team that is presenting a ton on the interior. I feel like I'm saying this a lot down this stretch that Syracuse has played, but, it's a similar situation. It's a small team. Georgia Tech is a small team at this point in time. In terms of, right, they have 6'7", 6'6". They have a 6'11" guy that doesn't play a ton. He averages under 20 minutes a game. So for over half of this game, the tallest player that Georgia Tech is going to have on the floor is 6'7". And it's not 6'7" with some size. It's 6'7", 214. Right? This is not a huge 6'7" player. So you've got a good opportunity for, another big Jesse game or a Malik Brown game, or maybe there's not as much size that Taylor and Bell have to compete with, or Benny has to compete with, that they can have some success and crashing the boards and get into the rim and things like that. It's another one of these opportunities, and this has been a stretch where Syracuse is playing teams that are smaller than they are, or lineups that are smaller than they are, and they've taken advantage of it at times. But this is another opportunity that they can do that and use that to their advantage. So I'm curious to see, I'm actually going to take away the comment I made about who outside of the trio. I'm just curious to see who shows out in this game, because it presents a really good opportunity and a really good matchup for a lot of different guys to have a standout night. And I think it could actually come from anywhere.
I think you're probably right about that, considering the size difference on these two teams. Okay, let's take a quick break. This one brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. It's all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, they got those too. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, We are talking Syracuse, Georgia Tech on today's episode of Locked On Syracuse. Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you. This game, like I said, Owen, incredibly crucial for Syracuse's postseason chances, whatever you want to call them. They really just need this game after coming close and losing games they shouldn't have lost. It's time to kick it into overdrive and really, set the tone for this 4-game stretch coming up that we've spoken about so much, where you're at Tech, back home against UNC, at Virginia Tech a couple days later, and then a couple days after that, back home against Virginia. You got to start off strong right here in McCamish Pavilion. What do you think they do besides exploiting that height to win this game? For me, just so I can give you an out here to actually think about something before I put you on the spot. For me, I think we need a Joe Girard takeover game, right? When is the last time Joe Girard actually exploded and went off and shut up the haters for a little while? Because Girard, he's been criticized his entire career at Syracuse, and whether or not you believe it's warranted is up to you, but the guy has had great games, and that much is undeniable. He has been really, really good at certain points, and he's been really, really bad other times. But Syracuse has not gotten a really, really good game out of Joe in what seems like a long time. I'm waiting for Joe to show us once again that he's capable of 25 on any given night. And against Miami, he had 21. But I just want a lights-out game from Joe where if he's putting it up, good chance it's going in.
I like that. He played against Louisville. He had the game against Richmond early on. He's had those games where he has shown it this year, but it would be cool to see him have a day like that, especially because he struggled from three, despite the fact that he was able to score and find success in other ways in that game against Miami. He did struggle from three, so you want to see him sort of bounce back and shoot at a decent clip and be able to have that sort of success and things like that. So I agree. I'm interested to see sort of how he comes into that situation and how he goes about it and what he can do. What I really want to see in this game, honestly, is I would just love to see the ball move a lot and running an offense and going through, what we started to see against Miami. I thought the offense looked pretty good, and they were able to find some different ways of scoring, and that was through Jesse, and that was through Joe. And Benny, I think, played a solid game. I would love to see him build off of that. But it doesn't happen a ton where, you just, at least this season, have had that pure game where everyone's sort of jumping in and everyone's getting it. And I would love to see a game where you have 5 double-figure scores. I don't care who the 5 are, in all honesty. I would love to see a game with 5 double-figure scores for Syracuse, just meaning that they're moving the ball around. They're distributing. The man who is open takes the shot, and they're running an offense. I think those stats are indicative of what they're doing in terms of running an offense. When you see them, have a lot of guys that are getting their fill, it means that they're progressing. They're moving the ball around to find the open shot and not trying to force things and not running just a stagnant offense that over the last, 45 years – you've been seeing all too often, where it's a lot of stand around, let the clock tick, and chuck. And this year has been a little bit better, despite the record not being outstanding. I think they can run a decent offense a good amount of the time. They've most recently had 5 double-figure scores against Virginia Tech, a couple of weeks ago. But was that really only a week ago? Has it been that recent?
What? Virginia Tech
was just over.
Yeah, I was thinking that last night while we were doing the other episode. I was like, that was a week ago? Oh my!
That game feels so much longer.
Feels like a month ago.
Yeah, it felt like I don't even know how much long ago. Like, it does not feel like that game was a week ago. But that's, I guess, too recent for this post or the point to be incredible. But I'm scrolling through box scores right now, and I'm at BC at this point, and they haven't done it since then, or since at least then. So they've done it once in their last 6 games. So it's not something that's happening a ton, but I'd love to see it happen. I think this is a matchup that presents the ability for it to. And I think this is a good team to be able to mix it up a little bit and try and get through reads and try and get through progressions to try and – those are all football terms, but I feel like I'm merging here because it's the conversation that we had with Schrader and not throwing the ball to anyone besides Gadsden. So it's fresh in the mind when I have these thoughts. I just love to see the offense run, and it's almost like the Heat when it was the big three, and they would go to LeBron and they went to Bosh and they went to Wade, and they asked who should take the game-winning shot, and it was like Ray, and Ray Allen, and Ray Allen just said the open man. I want the open man mentality in this game and just get through the ball, move the ball around, run an offense, setting screens, rolling, popping, everything that you would want in a functioning offense. This is the game to do it, and it's a game where there is momentum to build off of, and I would love to see, and I think that's a sign that this team is building solid momentum despite a loss to Miami that you're going to want back the remainder of the season and probably into next season when you start to look back on what might have happened if a couple of games went a different way this year.
Yeah, and I still think, like you said, like you get this win and you're still in decent contention. Like obviously, like you're still looking at a bubble year, just how it is this season. I think not everybody, but some people definitely had higher expectations than that with this team coming in and Boeheim kind of pumping the tires of the class a little bit, maybe more than reality. But if you get this win, you're still on track, and you've got three really optimal chances right ahead of you in UNC, Virginia Tech, and Virginia, and a couple of those are chances for quad one wins. So Syracuse definitely not out of it yet. And still has a chance to really make the fans proud and, I don't know if shock the nation is the right term, but it kind of is, though, because I think, after last year, first sub 500 year and Boeheim's entire tenure, I think a lot of people are probably starting to write Syracuse off in the back of their heads maybe, and I still think this team has more talent and more capability than last year's team, so they've definitely got a chance at the tournament. They're still figuring things out, as the people in the comments like to remind us. So we're going to give them the slack to do that. But it is certainly crunch time, and you got to be really not worried, but careful about which games you lose, because obviously they're not going to win out, but they got to be pretty darn good with however many games there are left on the schedule. Still a really big chunk of ACC play, so not all hope is lost, but they have to win this one. Absolutely. Okay. You want to hop into predictions? Let's do it.
Rock and roll.
Do you want me to go first or you want to go?
You can go first. I don't care.
All right. So I boldly predicted a win at Miami, which I think a lot of people said, wow, this guy Bones, what a clown. But I was almost right, and I should have been right. So I'm going to try, and the thing is about this game, like this is a classic Syracuse game to lose, right? Like you play so well, and then you play down to Georgia Tech. The thing I'm gonna ride here is that they have to figure it out sooner or later. Like it has to click, and like it just has to work. And against a bad team, that's kind of your opportunity to make it work. And it's probably going to be closer than you want, but this will be a win. I'm going to predict Syracuse to win this one, a 1-point spread, so basically a pick 'em. But I'm going to take the SU win in this.
I started this episode with a hot take. I think I got to continue on that train, Bones. I don't know if this is hot.
It is scalding.
I don't know if this is pandemonium. I am going to say Syracuse wins this game by 20 points.
All right. I thought you were going to say they lose.
No, this is a 20-point win for Syracuse.
All right. I like that.
And I do mean that. I look at this matchup. I look at, yes, they got a couple of guys that might be able to shoot the ball. What Division I basketball team doesn't have a couple of guys that might be able to shoot the ball, right? That is the reality. If they can play decent defense, which they have never been playing outstanding defense this year, but if they can hold teams to a reasonable amount, you can hold Georgia Tech to a reasonable shooting night. This is a game that Syracuse can easily run out of the gym with. And I do mean that. And I am trying to mentally wrap my head around a way that I don't see that happening. And I don't know the route that doesn't happen. Obviously, I know the recipe is so-and-so comes in off the bench and they have a career high and put up 25 and hit 8 threes, whatever it is. Yes, that could happen. Is it likely? No. But that could happen. I'm saying realistically, as I'm trying to map out a way that this isn't a Syracuse win, I don't see it. I look at the games they've been playing and the way they've sort of shown out since that tough skid in the non-conference and since the Illinois game where we were really questioning what this team is, what their identity is, what they have in the bag for the rest of the season. And the strides they've made have been impressive. They've been solid. Are they at a high tournament level? No, but this is a better team and a different team than we saw in that stretch. And with that mindset and looking at, the way they battled to come back and win that Notre Dame game and the way they played, solid game of basketball, a really, really solid game of basketball against Virginia Tech. And the way they battled back from down 21 to a single-digit loss against Virginia, right? This is a team that is getting there, and they're showing it. And they almost beat a really, really good Miami team with the worst game of the season from what many, including Jim Boeheim, refer to as the best player on this basketball team. They came and fought and down to the wire. This is a team that I think is better than, a KenPom ranking might suggest. This is a team that I think is on the right track and has shown that for over a month at this point, in all honesty. I think this is a game that Syracuse wins by 20, and I'm not saying that's a statement win in terms of that, in terms of the season, in terms of the resume, but I do think it's a statement win in terms of what this means in terms of the grind that this team wants to put in and what they're looking to do the rest of the season. I do think it starts with this. And even saying it starts with this doesn't feel right. It continues with this because I think the start is there and the start has been established, and they just need to continue progressing and building off of what we've started to see in the last month.
That was a Braveheart-esque speech from you right there. I'm pumped. You've got me pumped, Owen. All right, I believe in this team. I do. Let us know if you believe in the team in the comments. Email us if you want. Follow us on the Bird app. LO Syracuse, LO_Syracuse on the Bird app. Email LOSyracuse44 at gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you want to hear. We see and read everything, so we will monitor all those places. But thank you so much for listening to Locked On Syracuse once again. For your second listen, go check out the brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Isaac and Andy bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Big name experts, coaches, and players are going to join them. That's Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. I'm Matt Bonaparte. He is Owen Valentine, and we'll see you next week.